Welcome friends to another r/AskReddit video. I got a question for you guys. Which is more fun to press, the like button or the subscribe button? You better press both of them and let me know. That said, our question of the day is by Imaginary Trainer 654. What's the worst business idea you've seen someone try to execute? Our first answer is by Salty Popcorn Kernel, the banana pudding store. One day, my ex-boyfriend and I were taking a stroll downtown in the city that we were living in at the time. We passed a store that was called the Banana Pudding Store, or something I don't remember exactly. Well, I'm sure they sell more than just banana pudding, so let's go in. You know, like how Home Depot sells more than just hardware. They sell Gatorade, candy bars, etc. There were vats of banana pudding in the display cases, and I thought, well, surely they must also sell other flavors. So I asked if I could have a chocolate pudding, and the guy politely informed me that they didn't have chocolate pudding. So I asked if they maybe had butterscotch or something else. No ma'am, just banana pudding here. I mean, it wasn't false advertising, but surely he couldn't just be selling one single flavor in that whole shop, could he? As expected, the next time we strolled down that street a month or two later, the store was shuttered. I feel bad for him. I'm sure that the guy made great banana pudding that all of his friends and family would compliment him on and tell him that he should probably open a banana pudding shop because it was so good. But I don't think they literally meant that. Be honest, if you went into a store called the Banana Pudding Shop and you found nothing but banana pudding in there, would that be a disappointment to you? Or would you have a different reaction? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next answer is by Sujiri. At a place I used to work, we supplied printing companies with their ink. Being that digital printing is well and truly established at this point, there wasn't a whole lot of business for this type of ink anymore, so there was a lot of competition between suppliers. One of the technicians somehow weaseled his way to the top despite no business experience. When he was told to very simply make more money, rather than go out and find new customers, his bright idea was to make our company's ink weaker, with the intention that our customers will just have to buy more product to complete their jobs. Surprise, the customers didn't like that and went to competitors. Business was closed within a year. While what this guy did was scummy and awful and pretty obvious as to why people would stop buying with them, can we also stop for a moment and point out the fact that everything seems to be slowly shrinking? At least in the food world, but I'm pretty sure other places too. Everything's just slowly getting smaller and smaller, so more and more money can be saved or to keep up with the price of inflation. We got a serious problem on our hands here, people. Our next answer is by Freak Magnet. A small family bar/restaurant that I worked for back in high school was bought by a local couple. He was a retired insurance company executive of some kind that played golf all day, and she was a stuck-up witch of a woman that had never worked a day in her life and who looked down on all of the restaurant's employees as some sort of uneducated lower life form. The place was located in a small town, and the clientele was mostly local farmers taking their families out in the evenings, factory workers at lunchtime, and on Sunday mornings, retired elderly people on fixed incomes who would mob the place after church. The restaurant up to that point was profitable. I'm sure they liked the financials they saw on paper, or they wouldn't have invested in it. However, once they took over, they decided to improve it. There was one elderly couple in their 90s who had been coming in every Sunday morning for years who had no teeth. They always ordered the same thing: 2 hot roast beef sandwiches with mashed potatoes and extra gravy, run through a blender and served in a bowl so they could eat it with a spoon. We were now forbidden to do that since the new owner thought it looked gross and didn't fit the image of their fine dining establishment, so they stopped coming in as they couldn't eat roast beef any other way. Beer was no longer served in bottles at the tables. If you wanted beer in the bottle, you had to go sit at a bar. At the table, it was poured into a glass before being served. Some people really did not like that new rule and stopped coming in. There were plenty of other bars in the areas to grab a burger at. The first thing they did was put an end to overtime pay. The staff consisted of about a dozen older, long-term employees that mostly lived nearby and walked to work because they couldn't afford cars. These people worked their tails off, some of them 7 days a week, for about minimum wage, just to be able to afford their rent and groceries. Once they were told they could no longer work 50 and 60-hour weeks to make the maybe $25 a week in overtime, most of them had no choice but to quit and go find someplace where they could make enough to survive. Pay them a little more? Heavens no! These are unskilled positions. The new owners found that when they advertised for new employees to fill the vacancies, they didn't get the flood of applicants they expected. Waitresses, for example, were paid $1.70 an hour at the time, and cooks made $4. This was the 1980s. And the local sewing factories paid more than that to start. So they ended up hiring a bunch of their daughter's high school friends, most of which were the cheerleader crowd that didn't want to do anything that involved getting dirty, like scrubbing floors or restrooms, and none of who could ever work on nights when there was cheerleading practice, or a football game, or pretty much any Friday or Saturday at all. So the place was chronically short-staffed constantly, orders came out slow, and the new owner just sat at the bar fuming instead of doing anything to help, occasionally coming back to scream at everyone to stop goofing off and speed things up. Then when the business started to drop off, they decided to remodel to attract new customers. They tore out all the carpeting out of the bar area and replaced it with this ugly yellow vinyl flooring, so the working man can come in and feel at home. Like regular people didn't have carpet in their houses. They added a charbroiler to the kitchen and decided they wanted to add charbroiled haddock to the menu. Ever tried to grill haddock? It falls apart in little pieces and looks awful. Obviously the fault of the 16-year-old kids they hired to make the food. At the same time, they remodeled the bar to make it look homey to the lower classes of people. They added expensive scotch and other high-end liquors to sell to the customers, most of who were draft Budweiser and Miller drinkers. Those people also, as it turned out, rarely ordered quiche for lunch. The place lasted about a year and then sat empty for about 10 years before someone new bought it. Probably because they were trying to sell it for a huge profit after it was no longer an operating business. Honestly, this whole story reminds me of one TV quote, "You're the one who charged his own brother for a Bluth frozen banana." I mean, it's one banana, Michael. How much could it cost? $10? It's just apparent from the get-go that these people had money to blow, bought a restaurant that appealed to the everyman, and then just convinced themselves that they knew exactly what those kinds of people wanted. Let's not survey people, let's not ask for what they think is good, let's not ask our regular returning customers what makes them stay here, what makes them order here. You know what they want? They want quiche and vinyl flooring. That's our clientele. Our next answer is by generic user 435. I used to work with small startup businesses, not fancy tech startups, lots of construction and restaurants. My favorite two, restaurant/hair salon/childcare center, but non-profit. There were lots of people who wanted to do non-profit. It was mostly very community driven, wanting to give back and help employ people. She had a place picked out and was about to rent and had to come to us to ask for money. She named the building, which was tiny with no kitchen. She was lovely and we encouraged her to open the salon, but maybe without the salon workers cooking for folks in between clients, and without clients caring for kids. The other is hooker bus. Older gentleman who was certain that this was a good idea. He wanted money to buy a bus, and then he was going to drive it around to find women who wanted to hang out with CEOs and executives. And then during the lunch hour, he was very insistent about the lunch hour part. He would take it to the downtown business core and park it in front of large business HQs, and the gentleman who worked there would pay to come party on the bus. But you see, they'd just be paying a fee to be on the bus. So it's not like anyone's paying for sex, so it's totally legal. He had already bought the bus. It was an old school bus. We did not fund his endeavor. Come on, OP, don't act like you wouldn't want to pay a fee to climb on some old-looking bus with strange people. Honestly, I feel like I would have a higher chance of paying, getting on there, and then getting mugged for everything else that's left in my wallet, rather than what already illegal stuff I guess you would be expecting going into that situation. Either way, I think OP did the right thing in not funding that bus business. Our next answer is by Happy Peel Peel. Top for me has got to be a client of a design firm I used to work at. He was a trucker, his wife was a trucker. He wanted to make a sanitary pad that wouldn't need to be changed. Imagine a pad with a little line running down to a micro vacuum strapped to your leg, exhausting into another leg bag. Basically, a pad that just sucks the juices into a bag you can chuck in the trash later. So, my lord, I've heard of some bad invention ideas in the past. Yeah, I don't know about this one. And what I hate even more is there's a comment attached to this answer, or instead of chucking the bag into the trash, just have it go out the window Mario Kart style. It's like, please, stop making me imagine this. Our next answer is by Jig92. In 2011, we had the Norwegian butter crisis in Norway. The shortage caused soaring prices, and store stocks of butter ran out within minutes of deliveries. A pack of butter would sell for between $40 to $200 on the black market. A friend got the idea to drive over to the neighboring country, Sweden, to buy butter and sell it here in Norway. The problem was that you could only carry 100 packets of butter across the Norwegian border, so he made a deal with our local nursing home. He rented a bus and took 20 elderly people on a road trip to Sweden in exchange for receiving the butter quota. The next day, the butter crisis suddenly resolved and he was left with 2,000 packets of butter he couldn't sell. He still has his basement full of butter. You know, going into this question looking for answers, I didn't think I would read the Norwegian butter crisis. Did anybody actually know that there was a Norwegian butter crisis? If anything, I can say I've learned something today. In 2011, there was a Norwegian butter crisis. This next answer is by Asleep Remote 2000. In my country, there was a guy who used to sell wood. The problem was, he didn't have any of it. So he would ask for payment and then not give the product afterwards, hoping that procrastination and time will make the problem go away. He did 4 years in jail. I heard recently that if you sell wood, you're probably in a pretty good position right now because I guess wood prices are really high. That said, this guy would still be screwed and still in jail because he never had any and stole money from people. I feel like if there was ever an industry where you would hope that they could give you the money and you could just procrastinate on it and it would go away, it wouldn't be in the construction materials industry. I'm going to assume that 99% of the people who were trying to buy this wood were going to use it for construction or crafting or some kind of relevant task in that field, which means they would never just procrastinate and forget. This next answer is by Tyson Goes Outside. In about 2005, my friend's dad tried to start an arcade in a small town, just outside walking distance from a school using beat-up secondhand machines. To get there from the school, you'd have to walk by an established, larger arcade that also sold food. And that, my friends, is called competition. I'm wondering if this was a result of bad scouting, because I would just assume that anybody that's looking to open an arcade or anything like that would look around the area and try to find what's out there before sticking your neck out there like that. And our final answer of the day is by Flyboy Zaw. One of the younger dudes in my karate class was going to start a handyman business. 24 hours, anything needing to be done, anywhere in our district. Sounds good. You gonna get a loan and buy a used truck and get some tools? And you never have time to talk on your phone, so will you get a landline? 2006 are not super outlandish. No, I'll go on my bicycle, and I'll just use the tools they have. And they can email me when they need service. Right. Because when I have water spraying out of my geyser through the ceiling at 3 a.m., I'm going to email a dude on a bicycle to come fix it using all the tools and ladder I don't own. So this doesn't even sound like a discount handyman service. This is like basement level homeless person type stuff. I'm sorry, the ambition is great, the idea is good, the execution is horrendous. Imagine even going ahead with the email for some ridiculous reason, and you get an email back saying, "Alright, I'll bike on over and use your tools later on today, or tomorrow, or whenever." You'd be like, wait, what? Did he say bike over and also my tools? A comment replying to this said, "On a bike? Okay, sure. Not having your own tools and showing up on a bike? He's just a freaking dude riding a bike." Another person said, "Rent a dude." It's literally that. It's not a handyman. It's a, hey, if you got the tools to do it yourself, hire me, I'll come do it instead. I'll probably figure it out. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.